Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy here for the Daily Blob, where we say profit? I don't think I've heard of profit before. I mean, I know the term, monthly active users and daily active users. I know what bounce rate is. I know average time on site. Like I know a lot of words, but how do you say that? Profit? I don't. Yeah, I guess as a startup founder, I just never came across the concept of profit before. And this, my friends, is what we're going to be seeing in the world of AI as everything goes boom, as we know it will, It is interesting now. I used to go off on these rants with the Daily Blob show. I used to do a 2 to 3 hour daily talk show with the Daily Blob, started back in 2012. And in 2012, I was 13 years younger. I was in my 30s. Wow. I was 13 years? I was 35. So I would go on rants when I was 35 saying, I don't feel so old, but haven't we all seen this shit before? And then, it was kind of like, that's weird. And now maybe I am just getting older. I'm getting close to 50. I'm like within spitting distance of 50. And the funny thing with all this stuff in technology is we've all seen this stuff before. It's like a Marvel movie. It's like a Marvel movie in 2025. We've all seen it before. And actually, probably the original versions probably weren't that good to begin with. And it's all just kind of tiring, I would think. But yet, for some reason, we're supposed to get really excited. Did any of you see the Fantastic Four? I forgot about the Fantastic Four. I was thinking about watching the Fantastic Four, and then I just kind of forgot about it. Marvel movies, 2025. Oh, yeah, supposed to see one of those, wasn't I? Fuck. But I find this interesting talking about AI, because one of the big things I've been talking about with artificial intelligence and a lot of these AI companies is the whole question of profit and where does the profit come from, especially with the larger AI companies, right? So if you look at Meta, Google, OpenAI, all those companies, they are putting $400 billion into CapEx investment over the next fiscal year, right? So supposedly up until the end of July in 2025, so about 6-7 months, they had already put like $150 billion into CapEx investment, and that is going to accelerate to $400 billion in CapEx investment. And one of the arguments that I've made for a while now is not that LLMs, reasoning models, all that kind of stuff, do not have some value, do not have a lot of value. But my big question is, do they have that much value, right? If you are an investor and you invest $400 billion into something, you want to get $800 billion in value out of it, or trillions, really trillions in value out of it. You don't want to put $400 billion of investment in and get $350 billion back. That's not how investment actually works, right? And so that's one of my big questions here is we just see so much money getting dumped in these AI companies. And I don't like Claude Code. I've heard nothing but good things about Claude Code. Claude Code is supposed to be awesome. A lot of these things are supposed to be really good wherever they are within their life cycle. But the question really comes down is again to that value proposition, the revenue and the profit. We see this with GPT-5. So GPT-5, the cost is now down to $1.25 per million input tokens. It's much higher. It's like $10 or $12 or something for a million output tokens. But that cost, so it's a better model than previously had with a significantly lower cost that they actually charge people. And so one of the questions then has to become, like where are you getting enough revenue to get a profit, right? They OpenAI signed a deal apparently with Oracle for $30 billion a year in infrastructure services. $30 billion a year. And that's one company's infrastructure. And you have all of these tech companies out there trying to profit off of AI. And I just don't see how this works. And so that's where we get to this with TechCrunch, high costs and thin margins threatening AI coding startups, right? So what is it? Windsurf, is it Resplit? There's a lot of these. Windsurf, Resplit, is Lovable one of them? Anyways, these whole vibe coding platforms. The thing with the vibe coding platforms, basically what they're doing is they're using other companies, other vendors' underlying LLMs using API calls. So with OpenAI, you can use API calls, Anthropic, Mistral, whatever else. So basically what they're doing is they're creating a front end. They're creating some of their own intelligence, but then it actually has to go through an API call for another one of these AI vendors. And the issue is that the cost for providing these services is so high that there's either exceedingly little profit at the end of the day, or it actually is negative. And the question goes back to, can these businesses actually be viable? The curious thing they also bring up here too is the whole thing where the AI companies are now competing with these vibe coding companies, right? So OpenAI now has their own thing, right? They have a Claude or whatever. They have their own programming thing. Anthropic, again, has Claude Code. That basically the AI companies are looking at these upstarts and saying, hey, that's a good idea. So the upstarts, aren't making a whole hell of a lot of money to begin with. They're probably losing money. And then the big companies that they're actually buying their services from are looking at them going, that's a good idea, and then copying them. And somehow money is supposed to be made in this whole process. I don't know, you add in a couple of underpants, maybe put them through the washing machine, money comes out, I don't know. In February, AI coding startup Windsurf was in talks to raise a big new round at a $2.85 billion valuation led by Kleiner Perkins, at double the valuation it hit 6 months earlier, right? So it had been at $1.4 billion, and 6 months it had gone to $2.85 billion. That deal didn't happen according to a source familiar with the matter. Instead, news broke in April that the startup planned to sell itself to OpenAI for roughly the same valuation, $3 billion. So the idea is that they were on the meteoric growth, right? They had gone from $1.4 billion in valuation to $2.8 billion in valuation. So the idea that they should be $6 billion in valuation a year from now, and instead they sold themselves for $3 billion. While that deal famously fell apart, one bigger question remains. If the startup was growing that fast and attracting VC interest, why would it sell at all? Think about that with Snap or Snapchat, right? Mark Zuckerberg went to Evan Spiegel and said, hey, I want to buy Snapchat. And Evan Spiegel said, bite me, and walked the hell away, right? He figured he could make Snapchat more successful on his own. And so basically that's one of the questions here is if Windsurf was going to the stratosphere, why would they even think about selling? Because, wait for it, they probably were not actually doing as well as you're told that they're doing. Insiders tell TechCrunch that all the popularity and hype around AI coding assistants, they can actually be massively money-losing businesses. Vibe coders generally, and Windsurf in particular, can have such expensive structures that their gross margins are very negative. One person close to Windsurf told TechCrunch. This is due to the high cost of using large language models. The person explained AI coding assistants are particularly pressured to always offer the most recent, most advanced, and most expensive LLMs because model makers are particularly fine-tuning their latest models for improvements in coding and related tasks like debugging. The most straightforward path to improving margins in the business involves startups building their own models, thereby eliminating costs of paying suppliers like Anthropic and OpenAI, but that idea comes with its own risk. Windsurf's co-founder and CEO, Varun Mohan, ultimately decided against the company building its own model, an expensive undertaking, the person said. In addition, model makers are already competing directly. Anthropic offers Claude Code, and OpenAI offers Codex, for instance. So basically, the issue is that these vibe coding companies are using other people's LLMs. That's incredibly expensive. The issue is to build their own LLMs is going to be expensive on its own. There's no guarantee they're going to win that particular war, right? You're going to build your own LLM to go against OpenAI and Anthropic. Do you really think you're going to win that one? Then there's questions about synergy. You have the coders to build on top of LLMs. Do you actually have the institutional knowledge to build LLMs and then be able to maintain the LLMs and all that kind of stuff? So they have not been going down that route. Multiple people believe that the same pressure on margins when surfaced could be impacting Anysphere, the maker of Cursor, as well as vibe coders like Lovable, Replit, and others. Quote, margins on all of the code gen products are either neutral or negative. They're absolutely abysmal, said Nicholas Charest, a founder of Mocha, a vibe coding startup and back-end hosting solution. He added that he believes the variable costs for all the startups in the sector are very close, likely within 10 to 15% of one another. So the idea is you have all of these vibe coding companies, and if you actually look at their underlying cost, that they all pay about the same amount of money to keep running. Beyond Cursor, other AI coding tools are also among the fastest growing startups of the LLM generation, like Replit, Lovable, and Bolt, and all of them rely on model makers as well. Additionally, if this extremely popular business sector, already generating hundreds of millions in revenue or more a year, has difficulty building on top of model makers, what might it mean for other, more nascent industries? And that's one of the big questions that I've been bringing up that everybody tells me to shut the hell up and go home, boomer, right? So the idea here is, vibe coding. We have heard so much about vibe coding over the past 6 months. This is the future. This is what everybody's going to do, right? Obviously, it's popular. Obviously, it's valuable. But then you start looking at the actual numbers, and the numbers look fucking horrible, right? If they're breaking even, they're barely breaking even, and most of these companies aren't breaking even. And then if you extrapolate out barely breaking even, right? Do you want exponential growth of barely breaking even? How does that do well for anybody? And then on top of that, the people you're actually buying the model services from, they're creating competitors to your product, and they've got, like OpenAI is closing a single round of $40 billion. So the question is this AI business even viable? And then if you look at vibe coding and then you look at the other things that are trying to be built on top of AI and these AI services, it really does just become this massive question of are these new companies, are these new AI-powered services actually going to bring enough revenue and, more importantly, profit in at the end of the day to make them viable? And that's where I just really don't think with a lot of this stuff it's going to make a whole hell of a lot of sense. I mean, we've heard this with OpenAI, right? Sam Altman came out. So I have the pro plan. Anyways, I pay $20 a month for OpenAI or for ChatGPT. That's how I get my little featured images. Anyways, but even with the $200 account, so people are paying $200 a month for ChatGPT, and even that is losing them money. And that's my concern with all of this. One minute we are told this is a technology that is an existential determinator for an entire society. It's so incredibly valuable, and that's why they have to invest $400 billion. $400 billion in CapEx expenses in one fiscal year, $500 billion Stargate program, whatever the hell that actually means at the end of the day, right? We are informed how valuable it is. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I mean, how much do you really care? I mean, I pay $20 a month to help with coding projects and to get a thumbnail. Is that the revolution we've been told AI is going to bring? So yeah. I don't know if you can hear that. I guess the military planes are buzzing us at this point. I don't know why. I'm in upstate New York, and we have like Apache helicopters buzz us. Apparently there are Apache helicopters at like one of the National Guard units, and they take off from wherever they're at. They fly circles around here, then they land at a local airport so they can have lunch, and then they go back. I guess they have to get enough flight hours, so they just come and buzz the lake and go get lunch and then go home again. So I don't know if you can hear the jet, but I can. Well, this is gonna be the last video. I just realized that. This is gonna be the last video here. Going back home, going back to Asheville, North Kakalaki tomorrow. Be there for a couple of weeks, and then we'll be going to Austin, Texas for a while. because that's my boring life. My boring life. So anyways, if you like this studio, it's gonna go away. Gonna go away for a long time. Maybe it'll come back again in another year or two. Maybe it never will again. Who knows? Who knows? You don't know what you got until it's gone. Anyways, what do you think about these vibe coding platforms not being profitable? What do you think about the value for investment seeming to tank? What is this going to do to all of the companies? And this is the interesting thing that I think about with this, is we have heard so many of these dipshits, like some of these dipshits who don't understand what a default gateway is, and don't understand what IOPS are, don't understand shit about shit, right? And we are told they're basically going to replace their dev department with vibe coding, right? The whole idea, the CEO can now write code. Here's one of my questions with this. What happens when all the vibe coding platforms go boom? What happens when you've given the middle finger to all of your devs? You have stated in this modern world that they are worthless. And then the vibe coding platform you depend on goes boom. What happens then? What happens then? That's one of the questions I'd like to hear an answer on. Anyways, what are your thoughts? Put your thoughts down below. If you like these videos, give us a thumbs up. If you don't like these videos, give us a thumbs down. Leave an amazing comment. Leave a horrible comment. All that matters is that interaction. And with that, I've got to get ready for the fireside chat for silicondojo.com. I'm going to be talking with the VP for AI models over at IBM in a couple hours. If you're interested in those kinds of things, go to silicondojo.com, become a member for free. And when we have events, you can RSVP for them. And anyways, that's all I got. See you later.